next speaker is Dr. Jesse Ortiz, Woodland Community College professor and the president of Latino community of Yolo County. He's from Woodland, California. And I'm proud to say Latino community has honored American Muslim Voice and Khalid Saeed for the services that we have been providing.
Good afternoon. Raise this a little bit. Before I start my remarks, I would like to give you a reference point of who I am for the simple sake of many times when I do have the honor to do some presentation on inclusion, people think I'm somewhat different than who they are after hearing my remarks. And not that they're really radical or anything, but just that it's important you know who I am. I was born in California. I'm a product of the public schools. I'm a former Marine Corps veteran who went overseas for approximately 13 months. And presently, I'm a public elected official going on my 11th year. Albert Einstein, someone that most of you should be familiar with, who was a Nobel Prize winner in physics, and probably one of the world's intellect of all time, had a quote. And he said, "Try not to become a person of success, but a person of value." Mr. Ghazali's book, Islam and Muslims in the Post-9/11 America, is truly a book of value. The book brings to mind the historical injustices that America has had in the past. The slavery of blacks, the conquering of Native Americans and taking their land, the conquest of the Mexican-American people in the War of 1845, which took away the Southwest, because of something called manifest destiny, the incarceration of Japanese families in the 1940s. And reading the book, that was some of the issues that came to mind and the historical perspectives that I'm very familiar with. It touched me in certain parts of the book when I thought about my mother when I was 4 years old, who was deported by the Border Patrol in Woodland in front of a store on Bush Street, which some of you might be familiar with, because she could not speak English. It was in the 1950s, and it was a federal policy called Operation Wetback. The fact that she could not speak English, she was deported, leaving 9 children behind, including me, for a number of weeks. In chapter 2, Mr. Ghazali does an excellent job on describing how a conservative political base and the mass media continue to provide misinformation about Muslims. This spreads hatred, many times for the sake of political gain. I sincerely believe that since President Obama's election, November 8, 2008, the country has gotten worse in terms of looking at racial and social justice issues. There are political groups such as the Tea Party, which was formed the day after President Obama was elected in November 2008, the day after, which continue to, I believe, be a big issue in terms of race relations in America today. It's interesting to note that in a recent survey done, that 2 of 3 Tea Party members in America believe that the values of the Muslim way are against the American value way. That is wrong. The fact that they would take a position against what it is to be an American. Mr. Ghazali's book is a must-read for novices like myself who continue to share for inclusion practices. It is important that we continue to have courageous conversations, conversations that sometimes may not feel good, but need to take place to understand each other, especially in today's times. In closing, I'd like to share a short story. Last week, I saw a very close friend of mine who's a professor at California State, Sacramento. We share the same views about inclusion diversity, and acceptance. And he happens to travel a lot to talk about youth and the importance of those same issues that I just mentioned. He was on his way to Chicago, catching a flight out of Sacramento. And as he got on the flight, he took a comfortable seat, like all of us would take. And next to him, it was 3 rows, there was a person 1 row apart. Now, my friend Francisco is very similar to me. You start talking, especially when you see a person of color. And the person that was sitting next to him was a Muslim. And they got to talking, a Latino Muslim talking on the same row. They stopped in Dallas to pick up some individuals flying to Chicago from there. An announcement was made on the plane that this was going to be a full flight, that the boarding passengers should take the first seat possible as they got on and boarded the plane. And I share this story because last week when I saw Dr. Ravelis, I mentioned that I would be here today. Well, as he said the story, 1 person passed, 2 people passed, 3 people passed. He said he was about the 8th row. He knew the flight was getting full, if not full by then. Pretty soon, the person next to him, his Muslim friend, looked at each other. And Francisco, if you know him, would say, "It is what it is. We got an extra seat in the middle of us. No one's going to sit there." 10 people went by. 13 people went by. And obviously the flight was full. About that time that they kind of said, "It is what it is," there was a white young teenager wearing earphones with an earring on it. Didn't hesitate. Sat between both of them. And they nodded at each other. And the young individual said to both of them, "How are you guys doing today?" "Fine." I share this story because the future of inclusionary practices and diversity in America today lies with a lot of those young teenagers I just talked about. The acceptance, the inclusionaries that they believe in, that all people are created equal. A recent study asked those, what we call millennium individuals, between the ages of 18 and 29, the question was asked to them, "How do you feel about Muslims?" in a study about a year ago. 75% of that age group between 18 and 29 in this study in America indicated that they would not have a problem with a mosque being in their community, that they would not have a problem having a Muslim teacher. The faith in our youth, we have to continue to be positive and hopefully continue to move forward for the best now. Mr. Ghazali, I thank you for being a man of value. And I leave with you with a quote from a Mexican president in 1861 who said, "The respect for the rights of others means peace." Thank you.